Australia's Special Forces units have the longest presence in Australia's longest war. They were there soon after United States forces drove Al-Qaeda from these mountains 10 years ago. And they are here in Afghanistan still. But for all those 10 years, what they do and how they do it has been kept largely secret.
You don't really even talk about it that much with your mates. It's not like we come back from a job and you just talk for hours on end about what you've just done.
The core of every guy within SASR, that's to, in part, to strive for excellence in everything they do at all times, whether there's someone watching or not, whether there's going to be recognition or not.
Kept secret until now. Here we join Australia's elite Special Air Services Regiment, the SASR, as they intercept Afghanistan's rat lines, the insurgents' supply chain.
It's not about talking themselves up or anything like that, it's just about getting on with the job.
Their brothers in arms, the commandos, also overcome acute camera shyness, taking us with them in pursuit of a Taliban commander.
We'll go out there and we'll face Taliban every day. Put me in front of a camera, I'll shoot myself.
On the way here, plans changed. They heard on the radio that the Taliban commander was confirmed to be here in this motorcycle shop, so plans changed and the combat forces rushed this location. They're now searching a whole range of local fighting-age males. They say that they've already identified an IED facilitator. I think in the trade, that's called a jackpot.
Don't get off the path.
Complementing the commandos and the SASR is the Incident Response Regiment, the combat engineers out in front who uncover the weapons caches, booby traps and hidden mines.
I've had that twice where I honestly thought to myself, is that next step the step worth taking?
The different force elements merge to make up Rotation 16 of Australia's Special Operations Task Group, a truly unique band known throughout Afghanistan as Task Force 66.
Be protection, let's go, facing that way.
At the end of the day, we're just everyday people. We come to work, we do our work, and then we go home to our families. It's not like the movies. We do a job and we just get on with the job.
The Special Forces soldiers that I've come across tend to be genuinely very humble because they know what it's like to risk your life and to take life.
Go, let's go! Jesus, well! We're getting hit from here too. Who's shooting? Gotta take a shit, I ain't gonna shoot. Don't.
The Afghanistan home for Australia's Special Operations Task Group is at Tarin Kot, in the sparse, rugged and largely primitive Uruzgan province. The multinational base is a sprawling industrial estate devoted to war fighting. Special Forces is secreted in a fortress within a fortress at Camp Russell, named in honour of Sergeant Andrew Russell, the first Australian soldier killed in Afghanistan. Because we're dealing with special operations, it is a special opportunity. For the first time, they're letting a reporter and cameras inside this gate. We are allowed to move freely among the soldiers and ask what we like, with no one looking over the shoulders. But there are restrictions. For the most part, we can't identify them. We've also agreed to avoid exposing trade secrets, what they call their tactics, techniques and procedures.
And the fact that we're so secretive by necessity for how we do business means that a lot of speculation can go on.
But you will be taken to their battlefield.
Top of the feature, one fist left.
You will see what they see and you will hear their views on the war they fight.
This is not like any war we've been in previously, and we're trying to do it right.
Yep.
Some of the soldiers we join are veterans of multiple rotations. This commando won a Medal of Gallantry for an action that saw the death of a comrade, Luke Worsley, in November 2007. The contact, one of thousands, exemplifies the complexity of a war with no front line or neutral space.
I was involved in a situation a few years ago now where it was an operation at night into a enemy location. We made entry and there was a significant firefight within the compound. Another member of my team manoeuvred through the firefight to actually get to a baby, who was a newborn baby, and manoeuvred that baby out of the firefight to ensure its safety.
One of our guys had been shot and he was killed instantly. We were engaged with a PKM at very close range, and at the same time we were engaged by AK-47s from a flank inside the compound. This is all within 10 metres. Through the firefight, there were civilian casualties taken, but saying that, we didn't just go in there and go crazy.
Yeah, I think most jobs you come face to face with the Taliban wherever we go. Whether they choose to fight or not is up to them, and majority of the time they don't choose to fight because obviously they know that they're not going to win that fight.
Sierra 5-1, this is Tango 4-1. We just engaged two enemy in the alleyway. Stand by for fire support. Fuck, Jesus. Let's go. Yeah.
In 10 years of operations, Special Forces has accumulated 40 bravery medals, including 2 Victoria Crosses.
Brownie. Where? Say again. Mate, we've got contact to our right and contact to our left. No. Easy. Okay, see straight through this way. Come back, Brandon. You cover right, mate. I've got left. Can I? Right, start breaking back and we'll turn down right down here.
In 2007, this young corporal scaled a mountain to enter the lion's den, in this case a cave of a Taliban commander.
When I locked eyes, he locked eyes with me. It was approximately 10 metres. I could notice that he had a weapon down the side of him, and it was essentially both weapons up, and it was who was the quickest to the trigger.
This soldier is one of many to return to battle bearing the scars of previous combat.
Our lead scout was shot, and I also received rounds hit my personal weapon, and then fragments went through my face, through my ear. There was a lot of blood. Obviously, your head injuries bleed a lot more than anywhere else on the body. I crawled over to the medic just to make sure that it was nothing vital, and once he gave me the thumbs up, we continued on with the fight.
Ahead, we join Special Forces for 1 month of action outside the wire. In one detailed encounter, the Taliban suffers a major blow. They leave after midnight. The commandos merge with a local police unit. All missions are now conducted in partnership with Afghan National Security Forces.
The Taliban has caused a lot more injuries and deaths and destruction to them than they have the coalition forces. So yeah, they have a revenge in the back of the head. You know, some of these guys have lost their families, brothers, sisters to the Taliban, so they want to fight them, they want to kill them.
The target is 2 COIs, or compounds of interest. One a suspected bomb maker, the other a known Taliban bed-down location. Local Taliban might have heard the vehicles moving, but they will not know who is being targeted. At 3:40 a.m, the convoy falls silent and the mixed patrol sets off, Afghans in the lead. An 11 kilometres journey to West Darafshan has taken 3 hours. The roundabout approach is to avoid the setting of patterns that invite the laying of roadside bombs. It is the job of the engineers from the Incident Response Regiment to counter the Taliban's terror weapon of choice. Using a simple container filled with homemade explosives and improvised shrapnel, a lethal bomb is constructed at the cost of a few dollars.
The battlefield's changed significantly. I believe the threat has become far more complex. The Taliban and insurgent commanders have accurately realised that their strength is their ability at times to move within the population. And you've also seen the emergence of the IED threat over the years. And that IED threat provides a lot of challenges, as much for the local population and the local law enforcement as it does for us.
The patrol returns soon after dawn. By now, locals have gathered and a pair of US Apache helicopters has also come to take a look. All in all, it's been a quiet night. As they tell me, sometimes a dry hole is good.
We had some information that there was an insurgent bed-down location and a place where they were coming to manufacture IEDs in the local area. So with our partner force, we conducted an operation where we came in at night, waited until first light and cleared those 2 areas.
For the SAS, it is a much more productive day. They've headed out, attending to their main business, counter leadership, or what some have come to term kill capture.
You looked at our processes and we felt that kill capture was an inappropriate term. It was an inaccurate term, in fact. It implies that it's as simple and black and white as that. We seek to neutralise a commander and we remain, we do a lot of analysis into what the best method of that neutralisation might be.
The helicopter enables further reach to Kaz-Uruzgan, which has seen a lot of fighting. In August, an Australian soldier, Private Matthew Lambert, had been killed by an IED. In the following weeks, the SAS returned to Kaz-Uruzgan, and on September 10, they hit what they called a jackpot, killing 3 further insurgents and a master bomb maker, Mullah Abdul Qadir. The Taliban leader had commanded a cell of 30 fighters in the area.
That particular insurgent commander had been active in Uruzgan for about 2.5-3 years and had a lot of linkages to the Kaz-Uruzgan district, which is where the most recent Australian fatality came, the young sniper from Tuaria. So we'd been focusing very closely on that area since that death, and this particular insurgent commander had presented and we conducted an operation against him. It was a time-sensitive targeting operation and resulted in, required the FE to deploy at very, very short notice to get out onto the ground.
The force element had interrupted a shura, or meeting, returning also with a cache of weaponry.
The 10th of September on a mission targeting Mullah Kaya. Mullah Kaya was a senior insurgent commander based out of Kaz-Uruzgan district. And the significance of this particular weapon is it's an AKS-74. And AKS-74 are a Soviet-era weapon. And in Afghanistan, they're reasonably uncommon. So those insurgent commanders that we come across, they're in possession of them. It's an indication of their seniority. It's seen as a status symbol, and they're also worth a lot of money. So therefore, a low-level insurgent is very unlikely to be in possession of one of these weapons.
The Taliban leader, codenamed JDAM, had been on the JPEL, or Joint Priority Effects List. The effective hit list has attracted criticism that it hardens and further radicalises the Taliban, and that the coalition gets it wrong.
If there's ever an allegation that comes through that we've done the wrong thing, it's something that not only the regiment but the individual soldiers take very seriously, and it weighs very heavily on guys' minds. It does affect morale, but as you've heard from the guys, you know, they are confident, supremely confident in what they do.
Whilst I can't talk specific numbers, what I can say is about 85% of those individuals have been captured and not killed.
While most of the fighting takes place outside the wire, it's not as if the main base escapes attack. From the closer range of hills, insurgents regularly fire rockets, largely aimed at the coalition's terror weapon, the helicopter. The 107 rockets are generally set on a crude timer, so the insurgents can be gone before the coalition's immense firepower turns on them.
You know, now we've got a counter-rocket mortar device set up there, which has got 360-degree and 24 hours a day coverage of incoming rockets and mortars.
Later the same day, the commandos kit up for another mission.
It's about being proactive before you get on the ground as well. If you can war game everything in your own head before you hit the ground, when those different scenarios come at you, you're ready for everything if you've played it through in your own mind. But definitely the more times that you hit the ground, you get a sense, you get a feeling for what's out there.
The operation is delayed, if only briefly, when sensors pick up signs of an imminent rocket attack. We are near the flight line as we hit the ground. 2 rockets strike, generating more noise than harm.
It's okay to squeal if you want to.
There's some close call stories about people who decided they needed to go for a piss in the middle of the night, or got up to go for a smoke, and the rocket lands and it's landed in their bed space. So there's a few close calls.
Though notoriously inaccurate, the rockets have claimed a victim in the tight-knit Special Forces community. In January 2009, killing a popular member of the 1 Commando Regiment, Greg Scher.
So you worry about the guys out there, do you?
I do. I don't know whether it's because you know them and you work with them, or if it's a female genetic thing.
The Special Operations Task Group is mostly male, and mostly it works outside the wire. It's small enough to be close. Females make up 5% of the company of 300. Headquarters remains in close contact.
Look, it's definitely not a video game. It's not, you know, this is life and death sort of stuff. So it's not something that you can pause and replay.
The prospect of not coming back has to be on the minds of some of these men as they board 2 Australian CH-47s.
It's always tense when there's an incident going on outside the wire. I think everybody picks up on that emotion.
The Taliban has been heard on radio relaying warnings to not fire at the elephants, as they call the Australian Chinooks, which can reply with 4,000 rounds a minute. Next, we go flying with the elephants. And we see for ourselves the immense responsibility that accompanies the immense firepower in the hands of young soldiers. The first insertion will be of the sniper team. The large helicopters, used often for resupply missions,
or hash and trash runs to the more remote patrol bases will appear to do just that. The Chinooks lift high towards the mountains from where the rockets had earlier streaked in. The temperature drops noticeably and the Chinooks fire their guns as the landing zone approaches.
When we fire them on approach or on finals, sometimes it's tactically relevant to, I guess, create a bit of a statement.
You know, that bird's coming in, you got that last 30-second call, you're having a looking around at all the other guys going, yeah, this is awesome. Once you're on the actual ground, I guess it's humbling in a way that all your senses are 100% focused to what you're doing. You're looking your route, you're scanning for IDs, you're scanning for people, you're looking for normal pattern of light.
The massive helicopter perches briefly on what they call the pinnacle, a patch of ground the size of a tennis court, the ramp barely touching the ground.
It's a bit like the TV show Thank God You're Here, where you walk in and you don't know exactly what's going to happen, whether it be getting off a helicopter or going inside a compound. You don't know what you're going to be faced with and you just need to make split-second decisions. And I'm not just talking about the enemy threat. You may come in, you may have a dangerous dog right there, you may have women and children. There's a lot going on. You need to assess it and then get on with it and complete your mission.
And when you see those Special Forces guys go at the back, what do you think?
Generally, I think we're a big sitting duck, so let's get out of here so they can do their job.
The sniper team insertion should have gone unnoticed. The Chinook carries on to forward operating base Tinley, a turn and burn run. The dawn breaks the next morning on a significant day. Yesterday, when the war began, was a decade ago. As is the way of wars, they're a lot easier to start than end, and who would have thought, 10 years on, we would still be here.
The US is trying to frighten the Taliban troops.
More US troops are arriving in the region.
The bombs again rain down.
The second round of attacks.
We will not stop until the terrorist networks are destroyed.
The world's most wanted man showed his face for the first time.
They've roused a mighty giant.
The dominant event that brought Australians to Afghanistan in the first place was, of course, September 11. The dominant ally that keeps Australia here is the United States. And for the US, 10 years on, it is still personal.
I remember exactly where I was standing, talking to my sister on the phone. She was in Washington, D.C. She was terrified. I was terrified. Our Army went through a transformation that's unlike any that we've ever seen before since World War II. It brought a lot of nations together, you know.
The anniversary is no quiet day for the Australians. Out in the Char-China Valley, the sniper teams are already secreted as part of a large Afghan National Security Force push to clear the valley of Taliban.
One of the teams had identified a number of insurgents that were operating in the area, and obviously, in self-defence, called in a Hellfire strike.
An unmanned US drone locks on the target and releases. Once launched, soldiers spot children moving into the area.
That's when the teams on the ground identified children had actually moved into the engagement area, and that's when we made the call to pull that rocket off station and put it into a safe area.
They do measure up. They're all very aware. They are mature. They know what we're here to do, and they know what we're here to avoid.
On the following afternoon, further reinforcements board 2 Army Chinooks. It takes 15 minutes to fly what in a Bushmaster would have taken days. The problem of approaching on the ground also means the active Taliban spotter network can relay warnings. As they touch down, from the distant tree line, there is sporadic shooting.
Essentially, when I was there observing the CH-47s that were coming in, I've started to receive small arms fire, and obviously just prior to them hitting the deck, we had like multiple RPGs and RCLs sort of landing in and around the helos at that time. And that's when pretty much we just sort of started coordinating and directing any of the air support onto those locations.
We got someone watch our rear. Yeah, we got more deck around our rear too. Roger. We got 2 team moving from right to left. Go, covering.
The commandos, often in larger numbers than the SAS, work on disrupting areas where there are higher concentrations of insurgents.
Yeah, children moving left to right. Hey! Let's go! Go, just go.
The aim was essentially to open the gates to allow them to move through that particular area, and consequently we did.
Morning, gentlemen. Hey, let's space it out a bit so we're not fucking up each other's ass. You've got one guy and a fucking right turban around to the left.
The shock action that's that occurs on the ground with the insurgents is quite significant. They certainly move out to the periphery areas that we've found rather than remaining in the area to attempt to try and deny us from carrying out our mission. The successes that we had in that area over the 2 days were significant.
Enemy KIA. One enemy KIA on your first. Yep.
The commandos have been in the Char-China Valley now for 2 days. With local Afghan forces and the Incident Response Regiment, they search largely empty compounds. Joe, the explosive detection dog, hunts for caches of weapons and hidden mines.
Nothing phases him, which is good. Most of our dogs need to be fairly bold.
Joe is a replacement, his predecessor, Lucky, having vanished during an earlier conflict.
Mortars were firing, it was very loud. I was working the dog at the time and he got scared. And unfortunately, before I got the chance to grab him, he bolted out the door and he was gone. About 5 minutes later, we got a report that he's around a K away from our position. So he done the mad dash.
To the SASR and commandos, the incident response engineers are brothers in arms.
IRR was out there in front of us every day. Never rest, always clearing the way for us. We're out there actively seeking the enemy. They're out there actively finding the unseen enemy of IEDs and booby traps. Just such cool, calm and collected dudes. They look fear in the face every day and just get on with it.
In March 2009, the Special Forces Incident Response Regiment lost its first member killed in action.
The guys all know the guys within our unit very well. And we're a fairly tight unit, so any sort of loss like that hits everyone pretty hard.
Take Brett Till, for example. He had, obviously his family at home, and when you have a family, I guess you'd seem to understand that a little bit more.
Knowing the families and communities they move among and fight both for and against is that much more difficult.
In regards to searching of people, I think you need to take it in a very humane way. First of all, you want to deal with any threat. You quick pat down to make sure they don't have a weapon, and then you take a step back. You treat them how you would want to be treated if you were going to be searched.
Do you have empathy for them?
Yeah, I do. You go into these villages and they live quite poorly. Being a family man myself, you see these little kids walking around, they've got nothing. Back down there, mate.
They either have 2 choices, and that's to fight or to drop their equipment and run and try to pretend to be a farmer.
We came across an AK-47 bagged up in a cornfield.
just underneath a tree in the foliage. Had a magazine on it. It was cocked, ready to go.
We'd already been in firefights down in that valley. Then we just moved through the population, and you just got to sort of switch on, switch off. Like 1 minute you're fighting them, the next minute you're shaking their hands, and you know that's the Taliban. You're shaking their hands, and there's not much you can do about it.
Move back! That thing's gonna go up!
Next, the commandos deliver a major blow to the Taliban. When we first meet up with Rotation 16 in September 2011, it is our second encounter. Months earlier, we watched them fight another battle. It's captured in fine detail. The old ways of trekking in secretly for days have given way to fast insertion missions. What you are seeing is a practice run for Afghanistan played out on a secluded Australian Army base, drawn from real-time experience. The soldiers are trained not just to fight, but to collect evidence. As the mission in Afghanistan evolves into a transition phase, the battlefield evolves into one giant crime scene. Fingerprint and gunshot residue is collected. Witnesses are located and detained. The Kultana mission rehearsal is for the soldiers another in a long parade of brutal training programs that began with Special Forces selection.
It was a long, hard road. The whole course, or the whole reinforcement cycle is designed to sort of work you at your worst. Like they break you down so that they see you at your worst, so they know how you're going to react to certain situations when you're tired, you're hungry, you haven't slept. But it goes for a long time, and you come back quite skinny from it, and I still haven't recovered.
The mission rehearsals can be a little too realistic. In October 2009, an experienced commando was killed at Kultana during a live fire exercise. The rehearsals have since continued using recently arrived Afghan nationals relocated to this remote corner of South Australia.
I living in Afghanistan. Warazgan Khas is my village, my father village, my grandfather village. Now go back Afghanistan. When I go Afghanistan, is Taliban kill me.
When we join Rotation 16 as the football's final season approaches at home, the fighting season here is already underway.
Yeah, everyone's absolutely pumped. Everyone's looking forward to it.
We've received some significant amount of intelligence regarding a Taliban drug lab in northern Helmand.
Over 120 soldiers, mostly commandos, alongside teams of Afghan police from the Narcotics Interdiction Unit and local Special Response Team, will fill 2 US C-130s. They will cross into a neighbouring province where previous fighting has been far fiercer.
It took us 2 weeks of fighting to get into position. Once we're in position, we fought for the 6 days. It was estimated that we had up to 5,000 insurgents against us, which was our aim, to draw them up to us so this relief in place could happen. They had indirect fire support, we had indirect fire support. They had heavy machine guns, we had heavy machine guns. It was one-on-one type, not one-on-one type fighting. It was large-scale offensive fighting.
An Australian commando is dead and another soldier seriously wounded after battling the Taliban.
I extend my deepest sympathy to Sergeant Langley's family, his friends and comrades.
Earlier in Helmand was the beginning of a savage run for Special Forces. These steps proved the last for an experienced and decorated commando, Sergeant Brett Wood.
You're right.
Within weeks in the same area, Sapper Rowan Robinson and Sergeant Todd Langley were also lost. Every spike in casualties challenges the rationale for being in Afghanistan as well as extending risk by moving outside Uruzgan.
One thing we discuss regularly is that the lines on the maps here were drawn generally by us or by nations that came before us. Lines on maps don't mean a lot to the Taliban and particularly insurgent commanders. In fact, if anything, lines on maps are where they locate themselves because it's something that we don't exploit and they use to their advantage.
The Counter-Nexus mission, as it's known, is driven by intelligence gathered by the US Drug Enforcement Agency. For the DEA, the earlier incursions into Helmand have also been costly. This agent, just one to have suffered a gunshot wound. The shared losses have helped form a unique partnership with Task Force 66.
It's something that we've been striving as DEA to get a strong partnering relationship with military entities. The relationship is remarkable.
Overnight, commandos move in, one blocking force commanding the higher ground.
I don't think you could have slept, the mood and because you know that you're going into a fairly hostile sort of area, you get fairly G'd up for it.
In the dark, commando assaulters bump the enemy. This soldier forced into hand-to-hand combat.
Upon moving back to our block, we came across another two insurgents, and I took one back as a detainee.
The other one was killed?
That's right.
In the observation post to the west, as dawn breaks, further targets present, and 7 more insurgents are killed.
A lot of their spotter and scouting networks moving into, obviously, put eyes on friendly dispositions further down the valley. Obviously, we were positioned a little bit further out. We obviously got eyes on them and then, neutralise those targets in accordance.
The operation is monitored back at base by a range of eyes in the sky. At dawn, the DEA, Afghans and Australians overwhelm the drug lab. Thousands of kilograms of opium base and precursor chemicals, plus refined heroin, is found. The engineers quickly rig the chemicals and equipment for destruction.
The drug lab was inside a very, very narrow valley, and we were at the mouth of that valley trying to stop insurgent forces moving through. Through the course of the day, they had a few cracks at moving through, but they really couldn't get through.
The loss of hundreds of millions of dollars is not taken easily. Closer to the drug lab, an insurgent marksman gets into position to direct accurate fire.
Everyone good up there?
By 11 a.m, the task force is beginning to take casualties.
We got a casualty coming! We got a casualty coming! Yeah, Roger! Go up here. They're going to put the HLZ just here.
Back at Camp Russell, there is anxiety.
A gunshot wound, India, upper arm. A signs, a shock, a treatment, a medic in place, correction doc in place, administered morphine.
A round came in and it seemed quite close to me. It felt a pinch initially. I didn't think anything of it. 5 seconds later, I tried to move my leg and my leg was paralysed. Then I started getting stomach pains, and that's when I called the guys there. I'm being hit, I can't move my leg.
3 coalition members have received gunshot wounds. The Australian among them is Category A, which means getting treatment within what they call the golden hour.
They cut everything open and started looking for fragmentation wounds and going through all my intestines.
This is the HLZ.
The stretcher bearers and definitely exposed themselves to get me to that bird. I think it was probably about 10-15 minutes of running with me.
Get the 2 dudes behind you. We're going to go secure the cornfield. Well, let's push back.
The Australian soldiers retaliate, suppressing the marksman.
Go right 2 points.
Their comrade is soon evacuated by helicopter to a British hospital.
I do remember one of my mates just leaning over to me because I was kind of pretty much naked on the stretcher and goes, I thought you were Jewish, so...
In a conflict where clear measures of success don't come easily, the counter-Nexus mission delivers serious pain to the Taliban, as well as demonstrates a smarter approach to targeting by avoiding alienating the poppy growers.
And the reason we do this, of course, is so that we're not having an adverse effect on the general population and their ability to have a livelihood. So we tend to try and target between the selling and the distribution, which we've been able to do extremely effectively this year.
The profit off of the narcotics production and sales in this country does fund the insurgency, which leads to additional IEDs, additional ammunition, and the capability for the insurgency to put up a larger fight for coalition forces.
Especially in Helmand, the insurgency and narco-trafficking is, you're not able to separate it one from the other.
Special Forces soldiers deploy for around 4 months at a time. There will be no holiday in between. The weekends tend to disappear. Every day is a work day, either inside or outside the wire. The average age of operational personnel here is 32.
Well, generally I do the listening and the wife does the talking, and you've got to limit how much you call home because obviously we can't say a lot, so there's not a lot for us to talk about.
A lot of the guys here are quite a fair bit older than the average soldier, so a lot of them have kids. We understand that they're not just mercenaries, for want of a better term.
I think gung-ho's the last thing you'd find here in this command. My experiences, like I said, of Special Forces soldiers around the world, they generally tend to be very humble men and women, because I think just because of the reality of the nature of their work.
Studded throughout Special Forces are former professional athletes. Although the Padre does reasonable business, the true temple here is the gym.
It is your time to zone out. You've just come back from operations. You've got to tear yourself away from it.
It's something that takes your mind away from here for half an hour, whatever it is. Something that you would find yourself doing at home anyway.
To be honest, I pretend I'm dancing somewhere or I'm somewhere else. It's a nice escape.
Are they overworked?
There's times when it will get very, very busy. They do get downtime. I just wish during those periods I didn't go and hit the gym.
In the next segment, we return to a Taliban hotspot to see how the fighting has evolved.
That'll obviously be 3-1's call.
The mission this time is to another Taliban sanctuary closer to home. An advance by the Afghan National Security Forces in the Mirabad Valley has pushed the Taliban into one of their sanctuaries in the Chinna-Kalay Valley.
What's that on top of that hill? Over here! On top of that hill! Top of the hill! Hey! Top of the hill! Where's it coming from? Roger!
Victor Alpha, we believe one possible KIA. The other one to be confirmed. We are moving back to the south to establish an HLZ over.
Well, they're close, boss. They're close, boss.
It was here in 2008 when commandos from Delta Company, returning from a 2 days patrol, saw the hills light up like a Christmas tree.
Yes, but I don't know where.
Victor Charlie, this is Alpha. Can we get those Apaches in to try and identify these targets? Over.
We walked into a fucking bait trap.
The ambush demonstrates the vulnerability of the long-range vehicle patrols of old. The fighting continued for 2 hours, Dutch Apaches eventually rocketing the hillside.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
We manoeuvred into the village itself. We came under fire, we were ambushed. Within about the first 10-15 minutes, Jason was killed, unfortunately, and about another 4 or so members were wounded.
It was 2 days after Anzac Day.
We lost colleagues that whose mannerisms we can still remember. Things like that, they're not just a statistic, and they're not something that's we're here to avenge. We're here to, I suppose, more or less honour what they're over here in the first place.
The mission to the same location begins with a mixed objective, partly to win hearts and minds, and partly to hunt Taliban. On the way in, the atmosphere ramps up when fresh intelligence indicates a target is present.
There's a dude that's just squirted from the motorcycle shop pretty quick on his motorbike. He's fucking hooning. Be on the buddy cover of buddy across the demon.
The compound is 500 metres from the landing zone. There are shouted instructions to follow the footsteps of the man in front.
Spread out a bit, mate.
So essentially, during the flight in, we received more intelligence indicating that persons of interest are in these certain compounds. We've had to adjust the plan to cater for that.
One target has, as they put it, squirted on a motorbike, but a second target, a suspected IED facilitator, is detained. The locals have in turn also made a discovery. A sniper team in the hills above has been spotted, and suspected Taliban are attempting to encircle them.
ICOM suggested if they come in the green, they'll shoot us up.
A kid, probably younger than 10 years old, probably 8 years old, 6, was his little brother, I guess. You could see them start departing from the village with a herd of goats, and it became pretty clear that herd of goats was probably going to make contact with our position.
Quite often they'll use children. The children will come up into our positions within the green belt, come up, just having a look at us, then they'll walk off and report. And we've seen them, you can see them walk off and then report to adults.
Hey, brother. Yep. We've got a tunnel down here.
Back in the compound, caches are found, but they are empty.
We're not finding weapons or caches within compounds. They're all in adjacent fields.
Local nationals who have seen it all before seem to take the intrusion in their stride. And what about the bad people? How do they treat you? Through an interpreter, I asked for their reaction.
He said no bad people have ever even came for him to even know how to answer that question. He says you will be lucky if you even saw one in the mountain right now.
The men say there are no Taliban here, that they are farmers trapped in the middle. The soldiers are sceptical. Asking these people which side they're on can often seem to be pointless. They're obviously going to be on the side of their family, their tribe, and whichever powerful force happens to be around on any given day. It's an extraordinarily difficult question to answer which side they're on. And of course, that's the problem that the soldiers face every single day. Soon after, the men are detained when ammunition and detonators are found by the Afghan partner force.
Oh, they're actually very good. They'll find stuff that we can't find with all their technology.
More and more operations are now like this, with no shots fired and suspected Taliban taken into custody. They are held in this detention facility at Tarin Kot. Within approximately 4 days, if no prosecutable evidence is found, they are given a sum of money and released. More and more, the work of Special Forces soldiers has come to resemble conventional policing. While the Australian Federal Police has a training role in Uruzgan, they do not go outside the wire. It's often said that the best classroom is the battlefield. Is that limiting for you?
It is limiting, but there's reality. You know, you have to look at each mission, what's safe, what's not safe. I think some of the things that the SOTG get involved in, potentially we could be there. Some of the other things, it's really their domain. It's what they train for. It's high risk.
Dramatic rage. Gavin Ryan used to run the Piranha task force that investigated Melbourne's gangland murders. So, Gavin, it's a bit like out of the frying pan into the fire for you, isn't it?
Yeah, the 29 years at Vicpol were great. The last 5 years were, at Piranha were a highlight of my career, and I always wanted to represent my country overseas, so this opportunity came up.
So a challenge along the lines of building a police force in a community with a literacy rate of 5% and complex tribal and family ties to the insurgency is not so steep. So tell me a little bit more about the process of applying rule of law to what has been for centuries a lawless environment.
Yeah, it's very true. Not a very hard task for everyone involved. It's Australia back home. It's like coming in and transplanting a completely different system.
When the soldiers talk about resolution in Afghanistan, they frequently say there is no one solution and no single battlefront.
First step is to preserve the scene, then locate any witnesses.
The Australians partner with a US Navy reservist to train a group of local prosecutors in evidence collection. It's a bit like NCIS meets The Wire.
And the fourth is to collect the evidence. I'm a police officer in Maryland, so it all applies here. We teach the same things, so it's a good fit for me.
The immediate objective is to raise skill levels, and the broad objective is to strengthen rule of law. Is this evidence of measurable progress?
It is measurable, and as I mentioned, talking to chief prosecutors, they're seeing increased conviction rates and admissible evidence in the court. There was a time where people would walk in one door and out the other because there wasn't significant prosecutorial evidence. That is now changing.
In the next segment, we are allowed into the Nerve Centre at Camp Russell and spend a day with Australia's elite Special Air Services soldiers. One of the biggest changes to occur on the battlefront is revealed through this next unique experience.
What targets are we likely to be able to prosecute today, and what effects we can achieve on the network by targeting these people.
So have there been any developments?
Yes. Last night we had a fair bit of information that came in that's enabled us to develop a series of mission plans, I guess you could say, that are basically sitting on the shelf waiting for this morning.
So that's what we're about to see?
Yes.
We are entering the Special Operations Command and Control Centre to start a day with the SAS. This is where the battle is monitored, where the intelligence accumulates, and where what matters even more than the fighting, the thinking, is done.
We've had plenty of occasions where we've had intelligence that's given us a start point, and then we start bringing other layers and fusing other forms of intelligence over the top. It might be an initial rumour that starts from within the local population, and then we use some sensors to confirm whether that is true or not.
In the ready room alongside is another practical asset, the US Army Air Wing.
We're going to launch a morning vehicle interdiction package up towards Kalach. We've got some reliable intelligence suggesting a few of the key insurgent commanders from up that way are starting to be pushed back in.
To respond swiftly to intelligence alerts, the SAS needs helicopters.
Everybody's playing for helicopters. Everybody wants helicopters. So for these guys to have the amount of, if you will, dedicated assets for the rotary wing package is almost unheard of anywhere you go, and it's because of that relationship that we established early on.
This is the third rotation now that we've had the 4 and 2 package, so 4 60s, so 4 Black Hawks, and we have 2 gunships that support that, and we work over a 4-day period.
Out on the flight line at this one base is the equivalent of the entire Australian rotary wing fleet. Earlier this year, a US Black Hawk with the SAS on board chased down a major Taliban target, codenamed Wiggum, as he tried to outrun them on a motorbike.
Where they were able to identify Objective Wiggum moving on a motorbike, rapidly interdict him, detain him, conduct biometric analysis and put him into detention.
I take it you can use the rotor wash to actually remove him from his motorbike.
And in many ways that's how we often achieve these operations without engaging, without needing to fire a shot. We use whatever capability we might have.
Later that morning, the SAS squadron prepares for another such mission.
The 2 areas that we're focusing on is K2V and the Kalach Valley. There is reports that insurgent commanders are coming into the area, and we're going to restrict their freedom of movement by conducting vehicle interdiction along known rat lines, pretty much in this sort of area between the 2 valleys in this very canalised terrain.
The Black Hawks will head north. The modern approach to long-range patrolling is a long way from the days when vehicles would roll out for weeks at a time into areas where you did not need to be Taliban to oppose all invaders.
There's certainly instances of coalition being caught in the middle of crossfire between warring tribal factions. That is a feature of this battlefield, and that's what makes the job that the guys do so much more admirable.
In modern warfare's version of random breath testing, one Black Hawk swoops down, a smoke grenade fired to warn the vehicle to stop.
Observing 1 by motorbike with 1 by military age male. Break. Motorbike moving north-south. Intend to interdict over.
As with random breath testing, there's a lot of tedium and the occasional jackpot. Among the intelligence gathered are tests for indications of explosive residue and fingerprints, which can help convict bomb makers.
Ask him if he knows of any Taliban in the area.
یا ولا که معلومات لرزه خود موتروان سره موتور چلوم دا وش پوکی تو کحت برکتی.
Because back a few days ago and everything, they would walk around the village and everything, but right now they disappeared.
The search is undertaken while a second Black Hawk with snipers at the ready hovers above. In a week of interdiction missions, 1 rifle is recovered, 9 suspects are detained, and 1 insurgent is killed. While the results appear slight to the SAS, there is a positive. Usually at this time the fighting season peaks, but now fewer targets are presenting.
Some of them are the very senior levels who feel that they've done their bit and that they have no desire to come back and risk their lives anymore.
Next we go to the vexing question of trust following a series of fatal attacks on Australian soldiers by their Afghan partners. The dawn of another day and the commandos are on the move, preparing to attack another drug laboratory.
So going back to Helmand, considering it's obviously a hotspot, how do you feel about that?
Oh yeah, pretty confident. We've got pretty good intelligence for this one, so it's vicinity the same area as last time, so we know the area pretty well.
100 metres away, the SAS is also getting ready. The SAS is going out again. You have to be here to get a sense of the sheer relentlessness of all this. You'll see the men in the morning in the mess with the camouflage paint still on, having come back from a mission, and then soon after, like now, another crew is going out. And what is also hard to get your head around is the fact that going out is what they'd rather do.
It's the psyche of your soldier, I suppose. I mean, like I said, they're very high functioning individuals. No one likes to be seen as being a person that's not able to cope.
Every mission must be conducted with a representation of at least 33% of the partner force, in this case Afghan police from the local special response team, who are different. How hard is it for you sometimes to adjust, like to hurry up and wait, that sort of thing, to the Afghan way?
Well, I guess you saw it this morning. We asked them to be here at 6:30. 7 o'clock they rock up, but they do it their way.
Wally! When the Australians are not patrolling with the Afghans, they are training them. Fast-tracking courses in arrests, evidence collection, navigation, planning, and, in this instance, unarmed combat.
You have to make the training enjoyable. We're back in Australia, I guess you just do it and soldiers accept they have to do it. We're here, if you don't make it enjoyable, the numbers they just won't turn up, less and less.
This SRT commander was earlier brought to Australia to help strengthen both the skills and the partnership.
It'll be an overnight mission for, we only need 4 of your men.
There is no denying the degree of difficulty. In November, 3 Australians were killed by an enemy masquerading as a friend. This followed an earlier murder of an Australian Army cook by an Afghan ally. Afghan police in particular have had a poor reputation for collaborating with the Taliban, for extorting the local population, and for drug use.
I haven't seen them smoke marijuana at all, but in the early days they used to, and a lot of Australians would refuse to go out and patrol with them because they were under the influence of marijuana.
Adapting to the Afghan way calls for patience and compromise. What do you think? Is this one too hard?
No, I don't think it's too hard. I think it is certainly very challenging.
The challenge is most apparent in the key relationship the coalition has formed with a former warlord turned police chief, Matullah Khan.
It is unlikely that you'll come across anyone of any real power in Afghanistan that hasn't had some sort of past. It's a tough country that's had a very hard history.
How do you avoid fighting his personal war?
You know, any personal interests he might have really don't come into play when we conduct operations with his partner force.
The Australian frontline soldiers who bear the significant brunt of the challenge here for mentoring a sometimes doubtful partner say that the Afghans have come a long way. They also say you can't for a second relax your guard.
If we catch a Taliban unarmed, he'll come back here and go to jail for a few years, but if he's caught, he will, they'll kill him regardless of whether he's armed or not armed. We're governed by rules where these guys have their rules. They're slightly different to ours. Like we had 12 prisoners, 12 detainees the other day, and Usman knew that they were Taliban and he wanted to kill them right then and there, and I said, no, you can't.
You know, I guess at the end of the day, if I prefer not to work with them, then Afghanistan will never ever be its own country. I'm happy to work with them. I've been left alone with them for them providing me security while I've been doing some bits and pieces, and I trust them wherever I go.
Today's mission for the SAS is a deeper insertion.
The Taliban can ID sort of choke points, roads, where they're going to drive, whereas we can pretty much just drive anywhere. So our freedom of movement is across the desert, wherever. However, the Taliban find it very hard to ID against these, and also we're smaller. We can't be targeted as quickly. We can move a lot faster, and if we need to shoot and run, we can shoot and run.
US CH-47s, the Sugar Bears as they're known, will carry a scouting party of two-wheel and quad bikes into an area where they will conceal and watch and listen.
Often those operations require a bit of ground truthing, so a bit of detailed intelligence that vectors us onto a particular area. In this modern age, you can have all the sensors, all the UAVs, all the intelligence in the world, but nothing, even to this day, nothing replaces the old Mark I eyeball.
The mission is in support of the larger mentoring task force, which operates beyond the main base in smaller outlying patrol bases. The holding of this ground can be seen as the short straw, the MTF more exposed to IED threats and less equipped for aggressive retaliation.
My soldiers don't expect that on a daily basis, but they're exposed to danger constantly, and they don't know when that danger is going to appear and where it's going to appear from or what form it takes. And I think that that's the big difference.
The bomber packed 1,500 pounds of
The coalition's gains do have a way of becoming shrouded in the dust of the latest IED blast or suicide bomb attack. You've been here 8 times now, is that right?
Yes, 8.
Yeah. So, is it getting better?
It's a difficult question, Chris. When we first got here when I first got back here in 2002, you could drive around in non-armoured cars, just civilian cars, drive around Terrancow was quite safe. But now you wouldn't step out of the gate unless you're in an up-armoured vehicle like a Humvee or like our Bushmasters, because the IED threat is quite bad. Now, whether we brought that into town because we're here or because we've decided to partner with the SRT boys, I don't know.
How adept is the insurgency at propaganda, at pushing their message, at monitoring the message of the coalition?
Very, very, very smart people know how to use the media to win friends in various media around the world. A small attack where a drug-induced suicide bomber will detonate himself and maybe kill 1 or 2 people, say in Kabul, no coalition, no nothing, no damage, is blown out of all proportion in my view.
A simple trip into the neighbouring town of Tarrancot tells the story. At no time in its history has this provincial capital expanded as much as it has in the last 4 years. There are paved roads, a busy commercial centre, a hospital, and even a girls' school. But we still require the protection of 4 armoured vehicles to move a couple of kilometres. The governor's compound also tells a story. On July 28, the Taliban launched a suicide attack. The victims, principally the Taliban themselves, and local civilians, including children. That day, this Special Forces nurse was on duty.
And I remember turning around and seeing little bodies literally being carried in and just covered in blood. Just the most horrific injuries. Even to this date, they're still the most horrific injuries I've seen over here.
Out of that attack, the insurgents managed to get none of their targets, some of the high-profile members of the Afghan government within Tarrancot, and that would probably be perceived by the population as a desperate attempt that failed dismally and, of course, killed locals. So in actual fact, it was a disaster for the insurgents, it was a failure on all accounts.
At this meeting with the Special Forces commander, the target of the attack, Afghan Governor Mohammad Shirzad, says he still gets complaints about coalition targeting, but they are minor in comparison.
The people that come through are very grateful, and they certainly don't seem to blame the coalition from what I've seen. They don't blame us at all.
As our month with Special Forces draws to a close, it is grand final weekend back at home. It seems fitting. Prominent among the soldiers' reasons given for being here is you don't train all your life to sit in the dressing room on the big day.
Of course I believe in the ethic, but I more believe in the blokes next to me. I don't want them to be in a fight without me, pretty much, and I think they'd think the same.
I think it would be a wrongdoing for us to walk away halfway through the operation. I think it would be very un-Australian not to finish a job that you started.
We can't simply go into a conflict and simply leave after we've caused damage, and we're trying to do the right thing and stabilise our country before we leave. I think that's the right thing to do.
There are 1,000 ways to tell the Afghanistan story, and not one of them would be perfectly accurate. But this story, told largely from the soldiers' perspective, is important, not just because they are here and risking their lives, but because they are good witnesses. And what is consistently intriguing is the difference between what they see and the view back home.
We begin tonight with the Australian Defence Force and its chief hitting back at growing calls for the withdrawal of our troops from Afghanistan.
You know, if you're sitting next to someone at an airport, or you're just sort of having a conversation with another friend back at home, I would say that the most question I get asked is, are we really making progress over there?
What do you say?
I say yes, we are making progress. Quite often the only thing that the public may hear is that when there is a unfortunate incident which has occurred, as opposed to the many very good missions that are completed that do have a significant effect on the battle space. So I think it's a great concept that we're opening our doors a little bit, I guess, so to allow the public to properly understand that what's happening over here from both our own perspective and the rest of the Australian forces as well.
I think now that we've got that trust, and there's an established government, there's established procedures, I think, it's going to start moving forward.
Australian Special Forces actively avoid recognition. They are practiced at keeping their secrets. A curious consequence is the ugly gains of their enemy can be better known than their own measured, disciplined, and often magnificent endeavours.